Ka huri o taka whakaaro ki ngā tini aitua ku wehatu ki te pō. Ai ngā mate o ia marae, o ia takiwa, o ia motu. Haere, haere, haere atura. A rātou ki a rātou, tātou ki a tātou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, a tēnā koutou. He karakia timatanga o tātou nei hui, ka haia te ata, ka hāpara te ata, ka koro ki te manu, ka warari te kutu, ko te ata nui, ka horaina, ka taki te umeri, he pō, he ao, ka watia tihei, mauri ora, kia ora koutou. And also want to welcome along Karen. It's great to have you here. And I know it's not a great time for your council with Anne's news, but just sympathies to the council and to her and her family. I did send her a card, and I know others probably have sent her wishes as well. But yeah, thanks for being here and stepping up to the role. So kia ora. And to Ian, thank you also for your presence here. And I know there's been a change of things at Waka Kotahi, so thank you for being here. And just on that matter, just had to raise that, because it's a little bit complicated with our terms of reference and our the way we appoint this committee through the council. And the terms of reference says that we can't have alternates and all that sort of stuff. But a solution for today to just make it work a bit easier is that we just agree, because we have the authority to appoint advisors or appointees to the meeting today. So that just allows Karen and Ian to be at the table and do their thing. So is everyone okay with that? Do we need a motion or anything on that? Just, is everyone happy that we do that? Cool. And then what we can do in between this and the next meeting is get a few things sorted in the background and the paperwork side of it, so we don't have to do that again. Ka pai? Kia ora. So yeah, welcome everybody. I know everyone's travelled from far and wide, so just acknowledging that you've had your travels to get here, so acknowledging those from the top of the region down to the Waitaki. Kia ora, and thank you for being here. So yet declare the meeting open, and we've got a quorum, so that's great. And apologies, do we have any apologies? Murray and Dan. Cool, is that all? Yep, thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest? Just got to ask. No. We haven't had any requests for public forums, deputations or petitions. And is there any extraordinary or urgent business that people want to raise? No. All good. And any notices of motion? I haven't received any, but no, that's good. Okay, let's get into our minutes on page 10. They start. Has anyone got any questions they might like to raise about the minutes? No? All good. If not, can I have a mover to move the minutes? Yes, Craig Mackle, and seconded by Mayor Sam Broughton. Any discussion? No? All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to our first item, 8.1. Oh, I've got the wrong... There you go. That's the last meeting. All good. That's why the page number was wrong there on that, so I was reading the wrong thing. So we're going to 8.1. That's on page 37. That's a land transport. Is that it? That's right? Yep. Land transport rule. And I'm calling Tiara up to the table. I was going to say stand. That wouldn't be right. Nah, table. Kia ora, and hand over to you to introduce it. Thank you.
Kia ora. So yeah, we've got the paper on the setting of speed limits 2024 rule. I'll largely take the paper as read, but essentially it is just to inform you that we have had a new setting of speed limits rule come in, as promised by the National Coalition. Essentially, this new rule sets out that the regional transport committees no longer have a role in speed management planning, which is, yeah, fantastic for us, makes the things a lot more streamlined, and it makes the RCA, a lot more onerous for setting of speeds. So your guys' staff will probably be still going ahead if they choose to, but now we just have no hand in it. We have appropriately stored all of the papers and all of the information that we kind of did under the previous rule as required by this new rule. But other than that, yeah, that's it.
Cool. Any questions, clarification on this one? No, pretty straightforward. Cool. Thanks, Tiara. So we've got 4 resolutions there in relation to this paper just to put up. Everyone happy to take them all together? Cool. Do I have a mover for that? Nigel, kia ora, Mayor Nigel, and Mayor Craig Rowley. Seconded. Any discussion? Do you want to speak to that? No? You good? Okay. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. We'll go to 8.2. 9.1 on page 41. And that's our Regional Transport Committee resolution update. And Jess, you come into the table. Kia ora.
Kia ora through Mr. Chair. So I'll take the papers read as well. This notes the status of the previous resolutions. They're all green with the exception of the resolutions that relate to the deliberations that were as a result of the Regional Land Transport Plan development. So we're working with Papatipirunanga staff at the moment to understand their aspirations outside the Greater Christchurch area, and we'll report back to the committee in due course. And in relation to the number 6 there, the report around the public transport improvements in Greater Christchurch, we had committed to come back within the 12 months of the deliberations. Given we're going through annual plan processes at the moment, there's a degree of uncertainty around that. We're just looking to pause that slightly, and we'll come to a later meeting of the committee this year. So I think it's in August, off the top of my head, yeah. So, but other than that, happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No? Ka pai. So we got thanks, Jess. Got just one resolution there. I'm happy to move that. Any second, Grant? Thank you. Any discussion? No? All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. 9.2. This is our Regional Land Transport Plan. Claire, come to the table. Kia ora. So I'll hand over to you to introduce this. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. So this is a paper which I started writing approve, but apparently you don't have to approve because it's legally required and all the money's there to do it. So you're just noting that we're kicking off RLTP 2027. So, you know, I've gotten over having my last baby and I'm prepared to have another one. So I'm starting the project planning. And this time round is a bit different than the last time round. Last time round we had a limited scope for a midterm review, so it focused on like just emissions reduction and updating that part. This time it's not a start from scratch because, you know, Canterbury still exists and so the issues still exist. But it's a more robust strategic planning process that we'll be going into with greater stakeholder engagement than what we did previously. So we're aiming to have some early stakeholder engagement this year, around June, July, and then we'll be getting into the strategic planning of the front end and coming in tabling that in February next year when the new committee is in. So does anybody have any questions?
Kia ora, Claire. Any questions from members? No? I just said, so yeah, the stakeholder workshops in June, July, when does something come back to this committee? Claire, do we have an idea on that?
So at this point in time, it's in the project plan and then that'll be allocated to an advisor to work with comms and an external facilitator to design the workshops and set timings. So once that work is done within sort of the next 3 months, then that information will be available and we can let you know.
Thank you. Yeah, Grant?
Just for clarification, really, item 8 on page 50, those points there in terms of strategic framework. Will your framework be working closely with the various forums that the Mayoral Forum is looking at as well in terms of strategy, economic strategy, and growth strategy, spatial, all that sort of thing?
Yes, so there's 2 parts where we're looking at so the outcomes are set by Ministry of Transport, and then we set objectives, and we will be using the social, economic, environmental plans and documents and things like that that are already made, some of which come out from the Mayoral Forum, some of which are RMA plans that we're legally required to consider as well and take into account, and that will help shape up the objectives. And then there's another lot of evidence then that's used when we shape up the investment priorities.
I just wondered in terms of number 8 as well, when you're talking about the numbers and how populations travel, are you talking both residents, domestic and international tourists as well? Because that's an issue for us and would need to be considered.
Yes, definitely tourism is one area that I can say is on my little document of things we need to find evidence about. So we'll be focusing on the bits that influence transport the most in the region.
Any other questions? No? Cool. Well, let's go to our resolutions. You see them on the screen there. So we've got 4. Do I have a mover for them? Yeah. Mayor Neil Brown and seconded by Mayor Sam. Any discussion? Do you want to speak to that? Yep, way you go, Sam.
It's probably a question, sorry, I should have just asked before.
Or Neil, did you want to speak first? Are you happy? Cool.
Sorry, Neil.
Way you go, Sam.
It's just the process for setting this up. It feels like last time we did this, there's a change of government. There were some changes of priorities because we felt that we wanted to align ourselves more with what the government had indicated pre-election than probably where the committee had been at for the years prior to that. I'm just wondering how the planning that's going in behind the projects that we want to see identified and highlighted, is that going to be our work? And how informed is that by what the government has said they might want to do?
Yeah, so we are having a workshop to discuss that with the Canterbury Transport Officers Group and the approach we take to prioritisation. That'll be starting next year. I think we'll have earlier GPS signals earlier than what we had in the previous one. I don't know if we have any control. It's more a project risk of a change in government and a massive change in direction that we have to factor in at the time. But I'm planning as if it's going to be stable direction at this point in time.
Thanks, Sam. Grant?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same too, that just making sure that this committee is really strong in its decision making about setting of priorities. And we know that even if the governments are flip-flopping in terms of how they see those, I think it's really important that the traffic officers group gives some really good advice, and we take where we can that advice as good advice.
Thanks, Grant. Any further discussion on the item in front of us, the resolutions? No? Thanks, Claire. So let's put this to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? That's carried. Thank you. 9.3 now, Motu move. That's on page 55. And Giles, welcome to the table. I know there's been lots of work on this massive project, but very exciting as well.
Just a small one. Thank you, Chair. I'll take the paper and presentation as read. Just a couple of things to highlight. This is really to give the committee an update on the pilot for Motu Move, which was launched on the airport route 29 on the 8th of December. It's really to test the core financial components of the product to make sure that it works. It's pretty much worked faultlessly since the 8th of December. We've had 0 issues to deal with and very, very few complaints or contacts made to the call centre. We are seeing approximately 25% of trips and have had a total of 10,000 active users since we launched it on the 8th of December. So that's all good news from that respect. And now we turn to thinking about rolling that out more broadly across the region, noting that it is an incredibly challenging and complex project and a world first. I'm happy to take any questions.
Got it, Giles. Any questions? Yep, Sam?
Hey, just on the timing, there was sort of some delays last year around getting the first part implemented, and there was obviously Timaru and airport and then wider rollout. What's the plan, and how's that looking? How's the reforecasting around the rollout looking?
suspected we might get that question. So unfortunately, there are further delays, primarily driven by the complexity of the project and getting the integrations and some of the complexities of what New Zealand requires are not required in other parts of the world. So we are now looking at finalising dates in the next few weeks, but it is looking at Timaru is likely to be towards May, no earlier than May. And then we're working through what does that mean for Christchurch, recognising that the additional components that are required for Christchurch can be tested somewhat separately. So we don't have to do the whole of what we call release 1 for Timaru to then start testing for release 2. We can actually start testing the additional functionality that's required, which is things like the virtual card, companion travel, so that you can have multiple people being paid for by one person, and giving our drivers in Greater Christchurch schedule adherence, so allowing them to know that they're on time. Those components can be tested in parallel to completing the testing on release 1. But we will provide an update in the next, hopefully shortly, in terms of those dates and finalising.
Yeah, Grant?
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. I was just wondering, in terms of the other component part, apart from the testing, is the next steps in terms of being able to have the Motu Move cards. Are the retail outlets kind of been contacted and are almost in place, or know that they will be an operator?
That's a good question. As you would expect, the technology is one component of this, and obviously gets a lot of focus. But the technology ultimately will work or not work. It will work. As we see from around the world, the real challenge and the real time is in ensuring the customer experience is correct, and that the marketing and the engagement with the community, and that those arrangements, such as a retail network, which will in Greater Christchurch will be much more extensive than the one we have currently, equally down in Timaru, of making sure that support is on the ground. So we recognise that between a decision to that we have a product that we believe is acceptable to the user, we require a period of about 8 to 10 weeks to do that. Marketing, engagement, community, helping people transfer from the current Metro card onto the new cards, etc. The retail network work is going on to get appropriate numbers on board, and that work is well advanced.
Any other questions? Can we just flick through to the graph page on that, Jules? Look, I think really important work that we're doing here. Just wanted to acknowledge the work that the staff have been doing on this, and to acknowledge that, we are doing this the first time in the whole country, and there's some things about this that are new to the whole world. So, yeah, acknowledging that. Really exciting to see some of the figures here around, especially when you look at those adult trips. 35% of those trips were being paid using the cash, the contactless payment method, or just the credit card, or a phone. So that's really cool to see. And I know we were just doing tag on, weren't we? Not tag off, just to ease people into it, so they don't have to don't freak them out straight away to do both things. And I know we noted, you can look, there's still high proportion of cash on that route, but that's always been a high cash route anyway, because as we know, when we get this in, there won't be any cash on in the system. So that's just an ongoing challenge. But what Grant said about having the outlets for the actual cards should alleviate that, especially if in this case, if they're at the airport, then that's an easy thing for people to go and grab, so they can, if they've got cash, they can do it a different way.
This route is always traditionally cash, because of anybody who uses the airport, there is no retailer to get a Metro card, so it's always been a very high cash route. Our current usage of cash on the network is about 13%. We know that there's significant effort that needs to be put into getting people to understand the alternatives that they have. But part of that is also extending the retail network for Motu Move and people ensuring that they understand that the alternatives are available of a debit and credit card, which they don't currently have. You're absolutely right, Craig. This is just testing the functionality, so we're not doing the tag off. It's where you do the tag off that we will get the rich data that we need to help improve the running of the network over time. So we don't underestimate the challenges, but we do recognise that they give significant benefits. And as I'm sure you have all experienced when you've been overseas, when you use a system like this, you wonder why it hasn't been done before. I was just discussing with somebody yesterday, remembering a time going down into a foreign country's net, being able to read the signs, having no idea how to get a ticket. That disappears.
Just tap your phone. And it's really good to see that, straight away people are, those numbers are pretty good because people are just going, cool, just use my phone or my card, don't have to think about it. And that's quite a big uptake in a short space of time. So I think that's really good to see. Thank you. Any other questions, Phil?
You're saying that ours is a bit different to the rest of the world. Is it lots different? Are we trying to reinvent the wheel? I'm being blunt.
So the couple of main complexities is we are the first country trying to do something nationally. So actually trying to design a system that can respond to and interface with multiple systems across. So Auckland has different concessions to we do, and so does Greater Wellington. So there's a range of complexities in rolling it out across multiple PTAs rather than in one PTA in one city. The other thing is we do have a range of concessions and approaches that other countries don't tend to have, and that is something that over time, we're doing this is taking a more consistent approach nationally would allow some of this to be easier to implement.
Good example, Phil, is that companion ticketing that Giles mentioned. You might have been to those other Brisbanes and Sydneys and stuff, and you click your card once, but you can't do it twice. So you can't pay for your child or whatever. That's what we're trying to figure out. So that's one of those little complexities that we're trying to figure out, because that is an issue. If kids don't generally have credit cards, so that's an issue. Although they will be able to get the Motu Move card, but not if they've just come in off the country, if they haven't gone to the stall to get there. So there's just little things like that we're trying to figure out. Yeah. But it's pretty exciting. I think it's really exciting for all of us. So thank you, Giles. Any other questions? No, cool. Thanks, Giles. So we've got a few resolutions, or just a couple of resolutions, yep. So have I got a mover for that, Nigel? Thank you. And of course, you'll be eagerly awaiting the arrival of this in Timaru, so that's cool. And a seconder, thanks, Mayor Phil. Any discussion? All good? Okay, all those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. 9.4. Ian, I'll call you to the table, thank you, or to the different table, and hand it over to you to introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I might just go through the slides one at a time because they cover different topics, and then allow you to ask questions on them. Okay, we'll start with the roads of national significance. So that's a package of major transport projects nationally that allow us to meet the expectations of the GPS. It's fair to say that there's some significant benefits from the roads of national significance around economic growth, productivity, housing development, and a safer network that is more sustainable and resilient. The completion and approval investment cases for Belfast Pegasus Stage 1 and Hawke's Bay Expressway took place late last year. And the contract award for Belfast to Pegasus detailed design is scheduled for February, which is good news. Lodgement and designation resource consents for Takitimu North Stage 2 and Turiko Omanawa Bridge replacement is scheduled for March, April. I suppose the side benefit for the roads of national significance for the Transport Agency, or Kotahi, is that that is allowing us to start to move at pace to establish a sort of 10-year construction timeline. And that will result in a bit of a shift or a paradigm around how we design and build, which will play forward into our future infrastructure space. So there's some real benefits for us with that. Might take any questions.
Any questions on that part? No? Let's keep going, Ian. Thank you.
Okay, the next one's around the Road Efficiency Group. So the Road Efficiency Group were formed back in 2012 as an authority as a result of the Road Maintenance Task Force. There's a specific focus on the current Road Efficiency Group through the GPS when they've been charged to have a look at the maintenance activity and the improvement of the network from both an efficiency point of view for both state highways and local roads. So one of the things that they've done recently is they've come up with a new dashboard, and that's been launched in December, and that provides a comprehensive view of how road controlling authorities are performing across a number of areas. The consolidated metrics in one view should make it easier for executives, roading managers and asset managers to look at what's going on in their network, and it allows a drill down. So for instance, each of the main points in the dashboard would allow you to go further down into it and look at things, for example, like the total cost roads or lane kilometres. It might well be something that the RTC wants to make use of as part of the RLTP process. And there might well be an opportunity that you wish to seek for Reg to come and provide a bit of insight into how the dashboard works and how you might want to use it, if you're of a mind to do that.
Cool, thanks. Any questions on that part? No? Carry on.
Just before I leave that, one of the things to point out on that is obviously part of the what the Reg have been doing is assisting us with the TTM costs. So we've had a requirement now to look at TTM costs not only across the state highway network, but also across local government, and to do that quarterly. So there has been a Q2 quarter come in for that, and it's 100% complete. So there's a huge thanks to local government, and well done to the Reg to pull that in. And what that is starting to do is to provide far more insight into actually what temporary traffic management is costing. And we're noticing certainly from local government an increase in the amount of inspections that they're doing at the TTM sites as well, which is raising sort of profile as to what's involved in TTM. Reg will continue to support the RCAs to implement the TTM improvements and share NZTA best guidance on that. So we just encourage you to stay hooked into that. And they'll do that through regional workshops and through the champions process. Okay.
Sam, yeah, where you go.
Thanks, Ian. It's great to see, and this dashboard, I think, is really important for us to get our heads around, particularly as it relates to our own TAs, but thinking on the Canterbury level, how we're working together. The LGNZ's got a transport advisory group that's met with Reg leaders to try and think about how this can make a difference for us. I'm just wondering, can you help us with the governance side of using this data to ensure that we're asking, as multiple councils, the right questions and measuring ourselves accurately using this dashboard? Because it's a comparative tool, not necessarily, well, some of the indicators are comparative, not necessarily absolute. And so as a comparative tool, sometimes it might seem like we are getting numbers that might not read favourably, but that doesn't mean it's poor performance. It's just poor performance compared to other road controlling authorities. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Look, it's a good question, and I know that one of the focuses on REG over the last 4 or 5 years has been very much to ensure accurate data, so that we're comparing apples for apples. I think that that might be something to explore if you were of a mind to ask the REG to come along and speak, to explore how you could use it for exactly what you've requested in terms of how you use it to put the case within your RLTP to support the programme and the data within that. So I think the great news is that we've finally got a tool that allows comparison, and it is being used by local government. And so I think it's the power's in our hands to some extent with it. So I'd encourage you to think about getting Reg along and having a bit more of a talk about how we could use it. It's a very valid question, which I'm probably dancing around, not giving you a straight answer to, but I think it's probably worth exploring what the tool does and then having a think about how it might benefit the RLTP process for you.
Yeah, through you as chair, I mean, I'd welcome that coming to this committee. I just think it's a great tool. It's fun to look at. It's interesting to see how you're going yourself, but actually how do we maximise the tool's use for our region? I think could be something that we could learn from.
Yeah, is everyone keen on that? Happy to note it in the minutes, and assuming Jess has picked that up, and we'll move that forward into either the next meeting or the one after that. But as long as it links in with the work that we have to do, that's great in terms of what we've got coming up. So cool. Thank you.
We've got a bit of an announcement, which you're all will be aware of. That Brett Glidden's been appointed the new Chief Executive. Brett's a widely respected leader with some deep transport knowledge. He's a bit of a success story for us. He came into the Transport Agency as a graduate and he's worked his way up. He's widely respected in the sector, has delivered big infrastructure projects and was previously the GGM for transport services within the agency. He also holds positions on both national and international advisory boards, including the Deputy Chair of Austroads. Vanessa Brown has been acting as Brett in the Transport Services GGM role, and she'll continue to do that until we appoint a full-time person. Brett has quite a good linkage to Canterbury, and he did his engineering degree here. And again, I'm sure he would be more than happy to come down and visit and give you his take on the world if that was useful to the committee at some point.
Any questions? No, keep going. Oh, yep.
Okay, our summer maintenance programme. Look, it's a big programme. It's not big in comparison with the last couple of years, but the big change this year is we are doing more road rebuilding than resurfacing. And we sort of touched on that earlier today, which is great news. The tension in that for us, obviously, is tensioning some of our operational levels of service on our other activities. So I think probably in a similar situation to some of your councils. And that's just something we're having to manage. The challenge for us in that space is you might see a slightly lower level of service in some of our operational activities, but we're not going to compromise safety. So that's going to be the paramount thing in that space. The big call-outs in that space obviously are we've got quite an ambitious programme in some areas. So the State Highway 1 Te Aro to Waiuru programme is 130 kilometres delivered over 18 months. And that's a big bit of work for us to do. And then we've got a comparable rebuild programmes in both Northland and Taranaki, which are more than 30 kilometres each. So the rebuild's a big thing for us this year. Pre-Christmas, we've had a good start. So that's all going well. Obviously, January and February are our busiest months, and they tend to be some of the busiest months, obviously, from an agricultural and a tourism point of view as well. So we're trying to just work around that. Our programme will be substantially completed by March, with just some specific sort of asphalt sites continuing into April and May. We're working hard to navigate that disruption that I've just previously touched on, and hopefully liaising with you around when we are doing work. In particular, if we've got big disruptive work, like the Desert Road closure, we're making sure that we're pre-announcing that and then staying on top of it as it goes on, because we realise that is disruptive for everybody in the industry. So we just ask that you'd bear with us on that.
Thanks, Ian. Is there any of those projects in Canterbury? There's something this summer maintenance stuff?
I don't know if we've got any. We've certainly got sites where we're doing rebuild work, but not as significant as the Northland and the Taranaki ones.
Thank you. Okay, Nigel?
Oh, look, just a comment. I mean, credit where credit's due. I think the rebuild work that certainly I've seen in our district, such as through to Timaru through to Fairley, really noticeable and really good roading, isn't it? So the quality's great. So I think it's good to see that there's some permanent solutions coming forward. Obviously, there's some cost there, but I've got to say it's the best way to go, because the road's going to last for a long time, but it's the challenge of being able to get enough money to bring it up to those standards. So, but honestly, it's great to see some of those improvements.
Neil?
Just the work mainly been done North Island, not South Island. Is that because of a lack of need or lack of money?
I can't answer that categorically, but I would hope it's a lack of need in the south. That actually we've been in a better position with some of our asset. So we've got quite a lot of new asset in Canterbury, which is good. And we've got a lot of pavement that has been, it's older. In other parts, it's quite resilient. So we've been quite lucky in that from a compaction point of view, it's just worn quite well. And we're ahead of what we need to do on some of it. I mean, the biggest bit of work that we've done, probably that you'd be aware of, was the Athers Pass bit that we did towards the coast, when we had nighttime closures on that, essentially.
Thanks, Ian. Nigel?
You don't need to comment on this, Ian, but it might be a lack of votes as opposed to a lack of need.
Keep going, Ian. Thank you.
The integrated delivery model. So that's a key focus area for us. We want to replace our network outcomes contract model that we're currently using for the state highways. We completed a registration of interest phase for that last year, and we're going to move into request for tenders for that from mid-March this year. We're hoping then to have the contracts for that awarded by the end of 2025 and transition into the new contracts between November and March. We'll manage that transition. So part of the transition period for that is also to have a significant proportion of the programme put out as contestable works. So that will reduce the risk as we bid in the new contracts, because actually some of the key work will go out to the market. It's a significant shift for us. What it's going to do is put more accountability and responsibility for asset management with the agency, and also require greater cost transparency and a simplified and focused performance management framework to accompany that. The greater use of the supplier market will still come through contestable packages. So we are committed to growing and maintaining a sustainable market, which I think is good for us all, if we can get that right. It should, the reason we're doing it is to deliver greater efficiency in our delivery and improve the outcomes in terms of quality and outcomes for the customer. It should position us well to deliver the current GPS, but also give us flexibility if there's a change of government direction in the future. So it should be durable. Hopefully, we're not going to end up flip-flopping. We want to acknowledge that there's quite a bit of interest in local government around the contract form. And as such, we're prepared to make that available to local government in draft form once we've got through the NZS 3917 ratification with Standards New Zealand.
Any question, Grant?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Just a query that I've got about this one. It sort of relates to the National Land Transport Fund and the reduction, which I think is still in place, around planting, roadside planting, landscape treatment associated with our motorways. And you did mention earlier on some lower level of service, and kind of acknowledge that that was the case. But you also mentioned new assets in Canterbury, and either side of Christchurch we have at least $500 million new roads north and south. I travel in here from Waimakariri. As soon as I crossed the bridge, there was a huge amount of planting treatment right throughout the whole thing, and that has steadily deteriorated in terms of maintenance quality. And one thing that, and I realise that there's obviously issues about that. One thing I have noticed though is the creep of pest plants entering that landscape treatment because it's not being maintained properly. And before very long, we'll have a biosecurity issue along those corridors. In particular, there are some species that will just go crazy and self-seed, and then we'll have a bigger problem. So it's just, do you have a bit of a handle on where or if what kind of money is still available for maintenance of the amenity values of all of that expenditure from the previous GPS?
There's two things. I'm quite happy to take that away and come back with a more detailed answer on it to the next RTC. If the roads are still under defects liability and maintenance, there's a separate form of contract. So I suppose what we'll have to do is go away and have a look at where the individual projects are at, whether they're still being maintained under the construction aspects or whether they've been handed formally over into full maintenance under the maintenance. So we can give you a full briefing of where those are for the next RTC if you so wish.
Supplementary, I suppose I raised the issue because of your integrated delivery model, assuming that as part of the contracts, the tendering process, there's some elements of association, I presume, with those planted areas along State Highway 1. And if so, it's that just confirming that that's the case, that your contractors who get involved in tendering process, there will be some element of responsibility in that.
Yes, absolutely.
Sam, any other questions? Yeah, Sam?
Yeah, the change of contracts last time round, there were a number of shifts in the way that particular road corridors were managed, and for us, Porters Pass and people trying to get to Arthur's Pass and Castle Hill before snow events, or perhaps even just as snow events were beginning, there was quite a lot of angst in the community about the way that transition was done, where one operator had quite a different approach when the new one came in. So I'm just highlighting that as if there are any changes through the new contracts, just that the new contractor be put in touch with us locally as leaders to think about where are the right places to have some of those touchy conversations where they'll most need to understand local conditions.
Look, happy to take that away and note that and ensure that we do that. Thank you.
Nigel?
So with this change, is there, I know James talked about it, is there going to be a different approach to the Tier 1, Tier 2 contractors? Are we going to see more contractors doing the work, or is it likely still to be the sort of Tier 1 contractors, if you like?
I think it will still be predominantly the mix that you see now. It's just a different form of contract in that we take more responsibility for the asset management and the programming.
Oh, let's carry on. Thanks, Ian.
Okay, setting of speed limits. There's an amendment to the rule now in force. So there's updated guidance available to road controlling authorities. I can't stress strongly enough for you to use our support in this, because it is a bit of a complicated area that we're trying to navigate as well. Some key dates around this are the 1st of May, a list of specified roads needs to be submitted, and that's now going to include some transit corridors and rural state highway connectors. and the National Speed Limits Register has to be updated. It's worth noting that the completed reversal template needs to be submitted to the NZTA before the National Speed Limits Register can be updated. By 1 July 2025, the reversals have to be implemented, and by 1 July 2026, variable speed limits outside schools will have to be implemented with some exceptions. And so there are some nuances in this. There is an LTP funding available to assist with this through the cost scope adjustment and the low cost, low risk, even if you've got nothing signalled within your budgets. So my encouragement again is to come and talk to us about it. And we can help you navigate it a bit, because it is a bit of a complicated issue. And we realise there's a bit of time pressure on it, and it's a bit difficult for everyone.
Any questions? Cool. Thanks, Ian. Oh, sorry, Neil.
Yeah, the speed limits raising again have caused some angst in my community, especially in Whakakapi. And we've been I've sent letters to NZTA, and they're working through it. And I think now there's going to be a consultation on it, which will be great, so people can be heard.
Look, we would just encourage communities to do as your community have done, to write on it. We're tasked with implementing it, and we've just got to work through the process on it. National ticketing, I'm not going to say much more than that, because Giles has kind of done a good story, and he's got better numbers than me. So we're doing a transition to a risk-based approach for TTM. So I just want to highlight some things within that. So we made progress. We're moving from COPTM to the NZG TTM, and we've made some progress on that through 2024, where we've trialled that out in 4 regions, and that's been quite successful. We're making some changes through our procurement processes and our contracts, and we started phasing out both our COPTM qualifications with a move to a new framework under the new regime. We are going to end up with some new TTM performance measures that will go through into that Reg performance dashboard, which again, that makes that quite useful. And there is a move in 2025 to share more knowledge of this through case studies, resources, and regular updates with RCAs and councils. Now, on that, we've also got some support to find out some more information on it. So we're working with the industry steering group on that, and the road efficiency group to share information. And there's an opportunity for you as councils to go into a bit of a discussion with Tracy Berkham, the group manager from Auckland Transport for Road Corridor Access, to hear how they are looking at doing that. So if you want more information at the moment, the RCA website, our website, industry steering group website, and the CCNZ website have got information on it. Again, it might be something that the committee would like a bit more information on, or a deeper dive on. More than happy to arrange that if you so want to do that.
Any questions on? It's about traffic management stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Any questions? And I mean, Ian's offer there to think about a further presentation on that. Is that something that people would like to see, or maybe we can align that with the other one, the reg one? Cool. Thank you, Ian.
I've just got a few more items that weren't in the presentation. I might just whiz through. So obviously, it's really good news about the government funding around the Ashburton Second Bridge before Christmas. So the idea behind that, obviously, is the bridge is going to be built fully by the NZTA as a state highway asset, and then the council are doing the local road connections and funding those. So the next step at the moment for us is obviously to get a business case signed off by board as quickly as we can and get a design to market, and we're just working through that process at the moment. The other good recent announcement was the Brom Street is now being funded, and that's been funded by assistance from the government through their Crown Contingency Fund. We had enough money to do the design through the NLTP, but the government have stepped in and done some more on that, so that's really good news. It's going to be in two parts. So there's the first part will be the Collins-Simeon Street pedestrian cycling overbridge. And then the second part will be more of the corridor work around trying to move the vulnerable users out a bit to then free up the corridor for more of the T2, the efficiency, and more stuff around the freight access to the port. We realise that the announcement that some parties might have been overlooked. We just want to apologise for that. The INVAC list was changing up until the 11th hour, and so we might well have missed off parties, and we're certainly aware of the regional council and that, so we just apologise. And again, more than happy to provide further briefing on that project as the committee would like to see it. Also note that your next South Island chairs meeting, our chair of our transport board is going to come to that, Simon Bridges. A couple of other little things to notice, which sound little, but definitely worth noticing. We've got some maintenance improvements around the bridge renewals occurring in the Waimari area and State Highway 82. So we've got the Waihoa North Branch Bridge and the Elephant Hill Bridge, both having significant renewal work done on them. Nice to see that the MRT works continuing with the city. Last time I was here a few years ago, that was on the table, so it's good to see that the city are supporting that. Other things really quickly, the Rolleston access, we're just working through some land use issues on that, so that's going forward. The Hallswell Road, terrible ground conditions is what I've been told. Bigger than anticipated, but the local feedback's positive and we're moving ahead with that. Again, happy to provide briefings on all those as the Transport Committee would like. And we'd also suggest that if you were of a mind to, we can do a bit of a briefing on the minor resilience and the progress on projects on that in the next committee's meeting.
Thanks, Ian. Any questions or feedback on that one? Hey, thanks for those extra updates. There's a lot of interest in all of those projects, I think, from different districts and especially us here at the council, so thank you. Yeah, and would definitely an update at the next meeting on them would be great, so thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've just got a resolution there, so just that we received the update from NZTA Waka Kotahi, so thanks Ian. Moved by, we'll go Mayor Phil and Mayor Nigel seconded, thank you. Any discussion? No. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried, thank you. 9.5, that's our last item, that's just the report from the chair. I'll take it as read, but happy if any people involved in any of the things in there, like Grant, if you want to do anything about the South Island one, because I was only online at that one. Happy if people want to say anything about that, or if there's any questions, happy to try and answer them. Any questions? No? All good? So, and we just mentioned that we've got the next South Island regional chairs coming up, and Simon Bridges is coming along, so that's great as well. Any? Yeah, no, all good. Well, let's put this up. So happy to receive this. Have I got a mover for that? Nigel, thank you, and Grant seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? No. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. And that gets us to the end. Next meeting, scheduled in May 29th. And we'll close. So thank you, everybody. It's good that we've finished a little bit of time so people can get to where they need to get for their next appointments. Thanks, everyone, for coming. And Ian and Karen, again, thank you for your involvement today, and look forward to seeing you at the next meetings as well. So, Karakia Whakakapi o tātou nei hui. Kia tau nā manakitanga o nā mea karo ki runga ki tēnā o tātou, kua mahia te hua mā kihiki, kia toi te reo, kia toi te mana, kia toi te aroha, tūturu whakamā, kia tīna, haumi e hui e, tāki e, kia ora. Thank you.